I think about 50% of narcissists out there have empathy, but the difference is they refuse to show it. They don't want to be able to show it. They don't want to be able to engage because of what it actually says about them, because of what it actually affects. Now, you've probably heard with a lot of different people that narcissists don't have any empathy, that they're devoid of empathy, that it's impossible for them to have empathy, to have feelings, anything like that. And I want to dive into that today. And I want to try to walk you through like a couple things and explain why I don't think that that's 100% true. We're going to dive into why people think narcissists don't have empathy, narcissists don't have feelings, dive into like empathy, the 3 different types of empathy, and then also touch base on why I don't think that all narcissists are void of empathy. Now, are there some that are? Yeah, absolutely. Especially when we talk about sociopath and psychopath. Those, a lot of times, don't have any aspect of empathy. And that goes back to other issues that we're not going to touch on in this video. But when we're talking about narcissists, just in general, when we're talking about narcissists, I think there's a decent amount of narcissists that actually have empathy. And I want to tell you why. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. We do it on all the different platforms. So if you haven't had a chance to be able to check us out, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, look us up under Raw Motivations. You can get the podcast, Raw Motivations, anywhere as well. If you want a part of a community of like-minded people, go to narcapp.com, N-A-R-C-A-P-P, narcapp.com, stands for Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. Community of like-minded people to help you heal, grow, and change, to be able to get encouragement, to be able to track your no contact, to be able to record your truth, to be able to journal the things that are actually going on in your life, and engage with people on a week-to-week basis with our weekly lives, where people are able to come on screen, people are able to ask questions, people are able to submit questions throughout the week and get those answered every single week on Monday. And every month to actually be able to come to the table and meet with survivors all across the globe and be able to help them heal, grow, and change as we try to focus on what's next, how are we moving forward, how are we continue to grow, heal, and change. All right, so I started off saying, hey, narcissists have empathy, they just don't want to show it. Well, you typically hear on most platforms, you typically hear in most areas that narcissists don't have empathy. And it comes straight out of the DSM-5. They lack empathy. That's the first part of it, lack empathy. A lot of times people say they're devoid of empathy. And they just kind of use that label to be like, hey, no empathy, narcissist, right away. Like that's what it is. And it becomes almost like a standard of, hey, that person doesn't have empathy. Well, they must be a narcissist. That's what it is. And oftentimes it ends up using as a label and as a definitive measure of like, oh, that's what it is. That's what they are. Just like a lot of times people think of like cheating, like, oh, my person cheated on me, they're definitely a narcissist. But cheating isn't even in the DSM-5. Okay, that's not even a part of it. A lot of times it's an outworking, but it's not always a part of it. A lot of times people don't realize that there's other disorders and there's other people out there that struggle with empathy, with understanding and being able to appreciate other people's feelings and how those actually work out on a day-to-day basis. Like it's not just narcissism that struggles with it. Is it a lot of times a big part of it? Absolutely. And I'm not minimizing that at all. But we need to understand lacking empathy or not having empathy is not the only label that we can put on as far as being narcissistic. Okay? Narcissists, a lot of times you hear they don't have empathy. I don't think that's 100% true. I'm going to explain here in just a minute. Narcissists, a lot of times people say they don't have feelings. Okay? And the reason why a lot of people think that is because of how they treated you, right? Like they treated you to be like, they felt like heartless. It was like, how could a person do this to me? How could a person hurt me so much and not care? How could a person engage in all this stuff and not like value me? We talked a little bit about value in the video that just came out earlier today. The next day we have a video coming out about how like the narcissist doesn't care about you. Like there's a whole lot of different things going on with it. And I'm not going to dive into all that, but that's the mindset of like, wait a second, like they treated me like they were just heartless, like they didn't care. But you have to understand that doesn't mean they're devoid of feelings. Okay, they have feelings, but it also means that they don't care, that they don't have empathy. So it's like two different things that are going on there. Okay, so like they can still have feelings, sadness, anger, frustration. They can still put feelings to those different emotions, and you see that work out on a day-to-day basis. But it doesn't mean that they're actually going to care or connect with you about empathy. When we're talking about empathy, like a simple definition is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. You see, a lot of times a narcissist doesn't want to put themselves in your shoes. Like you've heard the phrase like walk a mile in someone else's shoes. Like put yourself in their shoes to understand what they're feeling, what they're going through, what's happening. And a narcissist doesn't do that. A lot of times they struggle with that concept to know either how to do that, or they struggle with the aspect of why should I? Why do I want to experience part of your life? I'm fine with mine. Why do I want to experience something else? You see, the hard part about having empathy and the hard part about actually engaging with that empathy is a narcissist has to take their ego and their entitlement and they have to set it to the side. And then they have to be able to put the feelings and needs of someone else above theirs to actually be able to engage and see that, hey, this person's feelings and needs is actually valuable as a human being, as a partner, as a friend, as a spouse, whatever it might be. But typically there's the ego and that entitlement that are in the way. Because why should I feel that? Why should I care? Why should I? You're meant to serve me. All those different types of things, the ego and the entitlement end up blocking a huge aspect of the possibility of empathy. When we talk about empathy, that simple definition, ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Most people say there's 3 types of empathy. There's cognitive. Cognitive is like the knowing. Like I know, I understand logically. This is a lot of logic. Like I logically can take your perspective and I understand the stuff that you're going through. Doesn't mean that there's, emotion involved. It doesn't mean that it means anything or it feels anything, but I know logically this happened. Okay, that sucks. I get that. Okay. Then there's emotional empathy. Okay. This a lot of times is when someone feels it physically. Like you ever had that one person that, someone's crying and the next person cries, like just cries, just because a lot of times those emotions for the people that have emotional empathy are very contagious. Like they pick up on it. The next person picks up on it really fast. And then you have the third type, which is compassionate. Compassionate, I've always kind of viewed in one sense as kind of being like the combination of both, like understanding and then also the emotional piece. But then compassion a lot of times is being moved to be able to help. Like it's actually like putting it to work, putting it to action. So it's not just like logically I know that and then physically I feel that, but like, hey, let's do something about it. Let's help. Okay, so 3 different types of empathy. A lot of times you don't see narcissists engaging with emotional or compassionate. They're not really moving to do something different. They're not really changing. They're not really starting to cry because you're crying, anything like that. But I do think there's a lot that engage with the cognitive empathy. Okay, all right, so while you watch the video, narcissists are not void of empathy. I don't think that is true. I don't think that narcissists don't have any empathy at all. And what you need to understand, that empathy a lot of times is still in the relationship. They're still there, but they're unwilling to be able to recognize it or identify it. Okay? So with this, a lot of times you'll have a narcissist that'll have cognitive empathy. They had to at the beginning, at the very least, they had to fake it to be able to get with you. A lot of times with love bombing, with putting you up on a pedestal, with trying to value you above all other people to get that connection. You see, empathy ends up promoting and providing an opportunity to actually reveal shame and being wrong for the narcissist. I'm going to explain this here in an illustration, okay? Because I think a lot of narcissists end up having empathy, but they refuse to show it because if they show empathy, it's going to hurt and it's going to harm the ego and the entitlement. Remember when I said earlier the DSM-5 says narcissists lack empathy? Well, that's only the first part of what the DSM-5 says. It says narcissists lack empathy, and then it says unwilling to recognize or identify with the feelings and needs of others. The thing that you have to realize there is the unwilling part. Is it shows, hey, there's actually something there. There's actually a problem. There's an issue, or there's something that I could connect with, but I'm unwilling to do that. I'm unwilling to recognize that. So I want to walk you through an illustration, okay? Let's say I come home, get in an argument with my wife. I'm completely in the wrong. I do everything wrong. Like I just get upset, all this kind of stuff. And my wife ends up going to the couch, sitting on the couch and crying. Being upset, really hurt, really crying. And I stand across the living room and I look at her on the couch crying. And there's a thought. There's a thought of I could walk across there and I could sit down. I could apologize. I could give her a hug. I could hold her. I could let her cry. I could show that empathy because she is hurting. The problem is, if I engage with that, if I walk across there and I give her a hug and I apologize, what it does is in that moment, it does 2 things. It validates her feelings. It validates that she's crying. It validates that she's upset. But then the second thing is it actually validates the validity of why she is crying and why she's upset, and that comes back to me. The problem is that doesn't mesh with the mask that I've created of being a good person, or of being a loving father, or of being a good husband, or of being faithful, anything like that. That doesn't match up. So as a result, the best course of action in the narcissist's head, the best course of action is to stand back and let that person cry and be upset and be frustrated, because then I don't have to sacrifice my ego in giving empathy. You see this a lot of times in relationships where a narcissist will see and will understand what they should do, but they're unwilling to actually make the step to do what they need to do in their relationship, because it would actually show that they did something wrong. And it would actually reveal the guilt and the shame that are one of the biggest drivers of narcissism, the biggest drivers to put up the defensive walls, the biggest drivers to make sure to keep you away, to not give you that empathy, because they don't want to harm or sacrifice that ego. Maybe you're struggling with that today. Maybe the person that's sitting on the couch and that's bawling your eyes out, and the other person standing across the room or has walked away or scoffs at you or makes fun at you. And you feel like there's no hope. I want you to know that there is. Whether you get involved in the community of the NARC app, whether you do one-on-ones with me, where you contact a therapist, any of the other NARC Avengers, like whatever it might be, I need you to understand, and I need you to realize that you're not crazy, no matter how bad it feels. You're not alone. Just look at the comments. There's a lot of people that resonate with this, and you're not hopeless. Reach out for help.